So a little while ago, you put up a social media post talking about how you were at an event. You were sat at a table full of Chinese, and through a conversation with them, you realized that they didn't really see you as Chinese, or they also sort of like assumed that you wouldn't really understand what they were talking about. Despite, I think you mentioned they sort of like grew up in the same neighborhood as you did, right? So can you
Yeah.
tell us what happened there?
Oh my God. It was such a eureka moment for me because I'm like, oh, usually in this situation, I would like make sure they knew because I needed them to know that I'm Chinese and I fit in with them. And in the back of my mind, I realized like, oh wait, do you need to do that? What if you experienced a moment where you just like allowed yourself to understand that you are Chinese and that you do understand all this, but not feel like you need to have the validation of them knowing and making sure that they know, you know? Because can I live for myself? Right? Why does it always have to be, oh, I'm going into these situations and proving to them, hey, you had a bias and didn't know that I was Chinese. Surprise, I'm Chinese. Haha. Let me prove to you that I'm Chinese and that I do fit in here. And I'm just like, why do I need to do that? Right. So in that moment, I'm like, let me take a step back and really feel what this feels like, but not be sort of not allow myself to feel like because this incident is happening to me that I'm not Chinese, right? That I don't belong. No, these people are showing me that I don't belong with their actions, but that doesn't determine how I feel.
Yeah, and I mean that post, you made a really powerful and beautiful statement, as in saying that there's really no need for you to prove to anyone that you're just as Chinese as them. And I love how you're showing, all of us that there's another way to look at, incidents like these, other than thinking yourself as a victim, sort of like feeling bad
Yes.
internally about like why didn't they
Yeah.
recognize me,
Yeah.
like.
What does
Yeah.
it have to, but what is that them recognizing you have to do with how you feel about yourself?
Exactly.
And also, why would you want to prove yourself to people who don't already have shown they don't accept you? It's a prison to allow people to have such control over you emotionally. It's
Yeah.
a prison when really like, why does their perspective matter in that way? Why do you give it so much power? Because it's you giving it power. It's not them. It has nothing to do with them, actually. It's you giving them power.
Mhm.
So it's easier said than done because it takes a lot of time. Um, and maybe I'll never fully get there, but it's really just the acknowledgement of it while it's happening and
Mhm.
shortening the sort of time span that you allow yourself to feel demoralized, right? If you feel it and then you immediately acknowledge it, you're like, oh yeah, that's not necessarily reality. It's just how I'm allowing myself to feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely understand. I mean, when the same happens to me, of course, I would still that initial rush of anger, or really trying to be like, why don't you listen to
Yeah.
me? Right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, these people, you're probably not going to see them a second time. So, like, there's really no need to really like suffer because of those like careless
Yeah.
remarks made by those people, also.
And there's no animosity that needs to be there. It's just, oh, I see you for who you are and how you talk to me. Okay. Well, I'm gonna do my thing. There's no like, ah, how dare they? And they shouldn't have done that. It's like, no, society's gonna do whatever it does, right? And I feel like you want to make change, make it within yourself, right? And share that voice
Hmm.
from a place of not insecurity, but a place of being proud of who you are. And then also align yourself with people who believe in you and who align with your message and really see you for who you are. And I think
Yeah.
it's more powerful when these people, who maybe in the past you said they should change, see you guys and see how proud you are being yourself and how you're not threatening anybody. You're just like, hey, I'm doing my thing. You know, I like that version of change.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that the other way is not the way to go, or that there's anything wrong with that. That's just not the way that I want to do it, because it's very taxing on your mental health, because
Yeah.
you're trying to get somebody else to listen to you when, and honestly, man, you're not connecting with that other person. If you're telling them to change, you're kind of not listening to their perspective, because their perspective is valid. How did they get to that perspective? Right? That's the conversation that you want to have. Sometimes it's unbearable, you know? So honestly, coming back to finding your community, you're able to have those conversations a little easier, right? Because you're more proud of who you are. You're not coming from an insecurity and just threatening them and yelling at them like, how dare you have done this to me? And they're like, what did I do to you? What are you talking about? Because they're not aware of that, you know?
Mhm.
There has to
Yeah.
be compassion for that too. Like there has to be compassion and empathy for the way that they are. How did they get there? They weren't born out the womb like, I'm not going to accept anybody that doesn't look Asian to me for the rest of my life, right out the womb. You know, it's conditioning. It's it's how society formed their brains. And a lot of it is like not their fault, to be honest. You know.
Mhm.